So Road to UFC is going to be coming back for 2024, and this is going to be Season 3 at the Shanghai Performance Institute. If you haven't already, I have done my predictions for Episode 1. There are going to be 4 episodes. This is Episode 2 of that one there. And in Episode 1, I did briefly explain what the tournament is all about. And pretty much to summarize it all, it is a tournament like Dana White's Contender Series, except instead of having to win one fight, you have to win an entire tournament consisting of 8 other people. So you have to win 3 fights to get that UFC contract. This one here is going to be episode number 2. And in this one also, you will have the women's strawweights as well as the men's featherweights. And it looks like for this one, they're going to have one of the men's featherweight tournament belts kicking off the card. And it's going to be Ming Shi taking on Yibugele, and Yibugele has taken this fight on short notice because Ming Shi was meant to fight somebody else, a 9-0 fighter from Afghanistan, but he has had visa issues, so now Ming Shi is going to be fighting Yibugele, who did fight last year. And to be fair, Yibugele, I will be honest with you, I was a little bit disappointed with his fight with Kuyakanda. It wasn't a very fun fight to watch. And especially if you do actually look through Yibugele's career, he has won these JCK tournaments over and over and over again. It really has kind of established himself as one of the better Chinese fighters at lightweight. And then he's come down to 145 pounds in the road to UFC. And I'll be honest, he's just not really looking that great. Ming Shi, on the other hand, actually fought on the Contender Series against Olivier Mourad after having a pretty successful run at one championship. And I will be honest with you guys, I just watched that fight back. I'm not that entirely sure why Ming Shi lost the fight. I mean, I feel like maybe there is just a little bit of bias there because I'm watching it back in hindsight, kind of looking for Road to UFC prospects and who I think is going to win the fight. But I know Ming Shi didn't do that much damage, but he did definitely control Olivier Mourad a lot on the ground. And that is what Ming Shi is going to look to do. He tried to do it against Young Lee, and he got submitted in 36 seconds, but he's kind of bounced back since then and has fought on the regional scene and gotten a couple good wins, a couple not so good wins. Here he's going to be taking on Yibugele. Yibugele is a striker that is very low volume, or at least from what I have seen. He does have a lot of wins by KO, but a lot of those wins by KO are over significantly lesser competition than Ming Shi. And just to go long story short, I do think that Ming Shi should be able to out-wrestle Yibugele here, and I do think that Ming Shi is probably one of the favorites to actually win the entire tournament. I think it's going to come on to him and Shin Haraguchi, but I do like Ming Shi's chances to beat Yibugele here and get past the first round. I think he is going to be able to out-wrestle Yibugele, and even then, Ming Shi's striking is a lot better. I mean, when he was on the Contender Series, it was when he was only 23 years old. He's now 26. And now we have Wang fighting Paula Luna at 125 pounds women's flyweight. And this is going to be a bonus fight. So this isn't actually part of the tournament in any way. It's kind of like a Contender Series fight, but on the card. And I just watched tape on Paula Luna. This is definitely a showcase for Wang. If you guys don't know, Wang actually has had a very successful kickboxing career in the past. Actually does hold a win over Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing in 2015. And has recently come over to MMA in 2022 and has found so much success that she actually has a win over former UFC fighter Wu Yanan and actually only beat her just recently. I believe that this is a fight for the UFC to see Wang on one of their shows, and if she does beat Paula Luna, which I'm very confident she's going to, they're going to sign her to the UFC. I do think that we will see Wang in the UFC after this fight. In fact, I am going to go out there and say I think that Wang is going to beat Paula Luna and knock her out. I don't think Paula Luna is that good. She is a striker. I watched her fight on UFC Fight Pass against this girl called Daniela Perez. Daniela Perez looked like the better fighter, and she's 0-1. Yeah, and Wang's 5'7" with world-class kickboxing background. Paula Luna's 5'3". I mean, Wang's going to knock her out. I'm pretty confident that's going to be the case. I think it's a bit of a showcase fight for Wang. If Wang does get the KO, she's definitely going to get a UFC contract. And I am quite excited to see how far she can go in MMA with that kickboxing background that she does have. Now we go back to the tournament. We're going to go back now to women's strawweight. And it's Priya Sharma taking on Huaxiang. And I actually think this is going to be a pretty close fight. It's kind of hard to tell how good Huaxiang really is. She actually was signed to the UFC. At one point, I'm pretty confident she had a UFC contract. But now instead of fighting for the UFC, she's actually now gonna be on the road to UFC tournament, which is kind of interesting. But I guess the UFC are just trying to give her some experience over some better competition. Because I did watch her fights, obviously, and the girls that she fought weren't really that good. In fact, I couldn't find this fight against Wang, which I was quite disappointed with, because I was watching her fight against this girl called King Yang, and then I also watched this fight here against this debuting girl 3 years ago, though. And there was also a lot of training footage out there because I think she's been part of the UFC Shanghai Performance Institute for quite a few years now. I just couldn't really find any good tape on her to tell how good she really is. One thing I can tell you is that she does have a wrestling background, and she can get takedowns with ease, and she has really good technique. And on the feet, she seems pretty dangerous as well. Seems like she's pretty powerful, is pretty aggressive on the feet, is definitely not scared of striking on the feet despite being a wrestler. And what I saw out of Priya Sharma is she's actually quite good. She's a lot better than I thought she was going to be. She is a wrestler for the most part. She wants to get the fight down to the ground and control it like that. She doesn't really do much damage. She kind of does just control most of her opponents in the clinch, and that's actually how she won her fight against Irene Oliveira, who was her best win on her career. And if Huaxiang isn't that strong and isn't strong enough to escape that kind of position, it actually could be a pretty boring decision win from Priya Sharma. But if Huaxiang wrestling background really is that legitimate, I do think that she is going to be the significantly better striker in this matchup and should be able to keep the fight at range and beat up Priya Sharma on the feet, despite Huaxiang actually being a pretty solid wrestler. I'm going to go with Huaxiang by decision to win a fight with the striking. It's not kind of interesting to me though, because as I said, I am pretty confident Huaxiang was actually signed to the UFC, and now they're putting her in the tournament. So I think the UFC is actually expecting her to win this tournament. I don't know. It's kind of interesting how that's kind of gone about. Most people are picking her to win by submission, I guess because she won her most recent fight by submission, but she's been inactive, but the whole time she has been training at the UFC Shanghai Performance Institute. I even saw a snippet on MMA Ecosystem's YouTube channel where it almost looked like she was on some sort of UFC Performance Institute reality TV show, so maybe that's how they picked her out to be part of that team. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna go with Huaxiang though. There's not that much tape on her though. It's kind of hard to tell how good she actually really is. And now we have a very interesting stylistic clash here, because Masuto Kawana is a very good wrestler with international wrestling background experience, and young Jae Song is a very very powerful striker. And I am going to go kind of against my gut, and I am actually going to pick young Jae Song to win this fight by knockout. If you do look into him, he's won all of his fights by knockout. He hasn't really beaten the best competition in the world, but when he has done it, he has looked very good doing it. He did most recently knock out this guy called Shunichi Shimizu, who has like over, what's that, like 70 professional fights or something, which is crazy. But yeah, looked really good in that fight. I mean, Shinichi looked like he didn't know how to strike and was like only a grappler. Knocked him out in the first round, didn't really have any issues doing that. Knocked out another guy in literally 20 seconds, had no issues doing that. Masuto Kawana is a really good wrestler though, and is the first thing that pops up when you do Google his name is him wrestling quite a few years ago now. I almost want to say it's like 2017 or something like that. He's actually representing Japan at some sort of wrestling championship. So he is an international level wrestler. And if he does get that wrestling going against young Jae Song, he should be able to win the fight. But the thing is, I say that he's an international level wrestler and he's got all this wrestling base. I watched his fight here against Jae Hyuk Bang, and Jae Hyuk Bang defended his takedowns, and he's a much lesser fighter than young Jae Song in my opinion, and even gave Masuto Kawana some problems on the feet. So I'm kind of looking at this matchup and I'm thinking, I think Ye Jae Song is a much better fighter than Jae Hyuk Bang is. So I'm kind of just going to put two and two together there and think that if he can defend the takedowns, so can young Jae Song. So I'm going to go with Song to win by knockout. And Song to win by knockout in the first couple of rounds. I could look silly with this pick because, as I said, Masuto Kawana, international wrestling level experience, could go out there and get takedowns. but I don't think he's that good at striking. He was getting problems from his most recent opponent as well, and yeah, just like Song. I'm gonna go with Song by KO. Looks like most people are agreeing with me as well on Tapology. And now we have Ming Shi taking on Dam Seo, and I'm gonna be honest once again, kind of trying to find fights for tape for these Chinese fighters is proving to be a little bit difficult. I did mention in episode 1 how I do it. What you do, go to their Tapology page, and then go to their Mandarin name here and copy and paste that Mandarin name in there. That is how you get tape for these fighters, because if you do just Google Ming Shi or you Google the name of these events in English, you're not going to get anything. But if you do search it up in Mandarin or traditional Chinese, that's how you're going to get everything, pretty much. But I do think that Dam Seo is going to win this matchup. Um, she did lose to Josephine Knudsen there in a fight which she did just get outstruck the whole time. Couldn't get the takedowns, and Knudsen is a very good fighter. She is kind of disappointing to me in the fact that she just has no finishing instinct whatsoever. But this video is about Dam Seo. She then went over to Niza FC in, I think this event was in Kazakhstan, and fought an 18-year-old prospect who was 2-0 at the time, but has now gone on a massive win streak and is now 5-1. So a good Asian win, and she looked really good on the feet in that matchup there. I thought she also looked very good in her grappling, because Dam Seo is a grappler. Ming Shi, I didn't really find much tape on Ming Shi, like, whatsoever, to be honest with you. I'm trying to see which fight I did end up watching. It was old, though. The fights that I watched of her are very old. I want to say, like, 2019 or something like that. This is really bad, isn't it? It was very long ago. Like, I think it was like around here. I managed to find her fights. There's just nothing really out there for Ming Shi, or like I guess that I could really find anyway. But yeah, she's also a grappler, but also a striker at the same time. She's not very big. She was the smaller girl out of most of her opponents. As you can see here, she has fought at 105 pounds before. I do just think that Dam Seo is going to be able to get the takedowns and get the grappling going. I know that's not really a breakdown like whatsoever, but in full truth, I just couldn't really find tape on Ming Shi, honestly, and that's just kind of what it comes down to. I think that Dam Seo, from what I've seen, I'm going to assume that she is going to be the better grappler in this matchup, and she should be able to get it done against Ming Shi. But of course, that's what this Road to UFC tournament is all about. It's giving these fighters here opportunities to fight against each other on the world stage, and then also it kind of gives me a very good reference point on how good they actually really are in case they do come back to the UFC or some sort of tournament, or some of them end up getting signed to Ryzen as well, which is kind of cool to see. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Dam Seo, and I think this is actually going to be pretty fun. I am looking forward to episodes 3 and 4 quite a bit as well, because men's flyweight and men's bantamweight are pretty stacked. So I'll see you guys in episode 3 and 4. I'll probably upload those tomorrow.